Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. We are welcoming back Lee Goldberg with the second book in his hilarious, actually, series. I'm thinking that basically it's a spoof or satire, not only of the thriller genre, but Hollywood. Would you say that was a fair assumption?
I think it's a satire, but also a love letter. What I was trying to do was to say, God, I love thrillers. I really do. But there are a lot of cliches and things they do over and over again. So I thought I would poke fun at the cliches and some of the tropes of thrillers while trying to write a great thriller at the same time. You have a delicate balance.
Boy, that is a challenge. And well, when I say you know, it isn't just about thrillers that you are. It's also about publishing, because you have some very funny things to say about, as we now know more of than we did last week, about the inside of publishing and how it works. So,
well, I think the first book was sort of making fun of publishing and making fun of printed thrillers. And the second book is making fun of Hollywood and what happens when Hollywood gets their hands on a book and adapt it. People who've read true fiction, all three of you, there are scenes from Ian Ludlow's novels that are in true fiction, excerpts from his novels. And in my new book, those excerpts are from a book that Hollywood is adapting into a film, and I show what Hollywood has done with those scenes and how different they are. So I'm able to spoof something different this time. I didn't want to repeat the same book.
right, no, I think that's a very important distinction. And he has written, you have to read the book to really get into it, some action scenes that are just pure Jackie Chan. I mean, they are taken right out of, in Hong Kong, they're in Hong Kong, and you must have had the best time writing those.
I did. She wanted me to read them to you, but I was afraid it wouldn't make any sense if you didn't know the characters and the situation. But I do walk through these places when I'm researching a book thinking, oh, it'd be great to do a scene here or to have a chase here. When I go out and do research, I have a general idea of what my book is going to be, what the story is. So I'm looking for key spots to do what I have in mind. But often once I get boots on the ground in a place, it changes my mind about what to do. And it's like, oh my God, these escalators, that'd be a great place to have a chase. And I changed my book to fit the real situation on the ground. I'm a big believer in research. I'm a big believer if you're writing about a place, you should go there. Not so you can wow readers with pages and pages of exposition proving you were there, but one line, one smell, one detail, one taste that you could only get if you were there, that'll make the scene and the location come alive for the reader. And that's a great pleasure for me. And I usually get so excited when I find that moment, because I'm aware of it. You know, when I'm walking down the street, and there was a scene in Killer Thriller, a big fight scene, that occurred to me as I was walking by this store full of goldfish, and I went, oh my God, I've got to have a fight with these bags of goldfish. And it's too good. I wouldn't have come up with that. I hadn't been walking down that particular street.
No, I can certainly see that you would take inspiration, you know, from the moment. If you're going there, besides, I mean, it's so tough to go to Hong Kong and actually have to do boots on the ground research. You ever going to send them to some strange place like Uzbekistan or something where it might be harder?
Well, I didn't go to every place in Killer Thriller. There's one sequence in Iskandran, I'm going to mispronounce the place, Iskandran, Turkey, which is right on the Syrian border. I did not go there. And I didn't get a chance to go to Singapore. I had planned to, but it didn't work out. On the other hand, when I did the 5 books with Janet, the Fox and O'Hare books, I always tried to have exotic locales, but also some small town in America, or Nashville, or Owensboro, Kentucky, or something. And I would go to those places, just the same way I would go to London or Antwerp or whatever. I would go to Nashville and walk the streets to get that piece of reality that I think grounds a scene, whether the scene is humorous or action or drama. To have that kind of reality makes it real.
So
that's a terrible sentence. Having that kind of reality makes it real. This is why we are able to rewrite what we do in books. I wish I could rewrite myself in reality.
Excellent point. It's harder to self-edit when you're talking than it is when you go back and look at the page. So you're a guy with a long-time experience of Hollywood, and clearly nobody really could have written this book that didn't have some working knowledge of how it all goes. What inspired you to write this series?
A couple things inspired me. 3 or 4 things, not all at once. I get a kick out of the fact that, Thomas Perry and I were in a bar talking,
As one would, right?
And I realized he's such a sweet man. But, he's short, a little heavy, balding. And he writes these characters that kick ass, that can make anyone disappear, are super thieves and all that. And I'm wondering, if he had to disappear, could he do it? And then you look at Lee Child, great guy, looks like Roger Moore, but he's not Roger Moore. Could he do what Reacher does? And I think of so many of my friends who write these kick-ass action heroes who are not kick-ass guys themselves. What would happen if they were in that situation? And around the same time I was thinking this, Lawrence Block wrote a essay for Mystery Scene, I think. I'm going to get these names wrong, I'll make up the name. Lawrence Block was relating an anecdote about an author who wrote terrific detective novels, the Archie Weiner novels. And I'm making that up because I can't remember what the author was, Archie Weiner novels. And the guy was complaining to Lawrence Block, either he'd been the victim of identity theft or someone had robbed his house or whatever, and he was saying, God, I wish I could nail these guys. The police aren't doing anything. Lawrence Block said, why don't you do it the way Archie Weiner would? The other said, I can't do that. I'm not Archie Weiner. Lawrence Block said, yes, you are. Everything Archie has done, you've done. Well, I was never a cop in Beirut. No, but everything the way he thinks, you could do it. And the author said no. So that stuck in my head. And then my brother Todd wrote a book with Brad Meltzer. And we had dinner one night, and Brad was talking about how he had been recruited by the CIA to share terrorism scenarios. And I know Lee Child has, I think Michael Connelly as well. And some TV writers I know have also been brought in by Homeland Security and the CIA to share terrorism scenarios. So all this was in my head, and I thought, I should do a book about a guy like me who writes these action books and then finally finds himself in that situation, and what does he do? Well, he runs crying away from the killers. But at some point, does he make a stand? Does he have to become the hero he writes about to survive? And that's what I did. I'm drooling all over myself. This is what happens when you reach my age. I've lost my train of thought. That's the other thing that happens when you reach my age.
Right. Well, what I asked you was the inspiration. Actually, it was funny you talking about Tom Perry because you realize that at least half of the action heroes that he writes are women.
That's true.
Not
my
Tom,
wife,
but
I wrote the Monk novels, and I did it first person from Natalie's point of view. And my wife, she's French. I'm going to do her accent. She goes, I love this woman, Natalie. She really understands women. What I can understand is, how can you be writing it? You have no clue. I want you to be more like the woman you write about. How can you write that and still leave the toilet seat up, the laundry doesn't make its way up the stairs by itself. And I've been around women so much. I come from a single-parent household with two sisters. I now am in a household with a wife and a daughter. I'm surrounded by women and tampons and bras and things. I've absorbed some of it, plus all the criticism I've absorbed, and I'm able to, I think, write women effectively because I don't look at them from the male gaze. I try to get inside their head. I try to think of them as my sister, my wife, my daughter.
So you have a woman who's an equal partner in this series, and I thought that we might lose her at the end of book one, but here she is back.
Don't give away everything.
I'm not giving away anything, but she's back, and so she carries a big load in the book too. That's
the other thing I wanted to do. All these movies where an ordinary guy's on the run, whether it's North by Northwest or 3 Days of the Condor or even The Bourne Identity, turns out not to be an ordinary guy. But in all these situations, the guy is always very capable. He discovers qualities he didn't know he had. And the woman that gets involved against her will, by the end of the book, is sleeping with him and falling in love with him. I thought that was ridiculous. You kidnap a woman as you're being chased by killers and put her life in jeopardy and drag her all across the country or Europe with you. She's not going to want to sleep with you. She's going to want to kill you. So I thought it'd be funny if I went the other way and had him with a woman. There's no way there's going to be a relationship. She's a lesbian. And it's funny. At the end of the book, in the end of True Fiction, everything works out and they kiss. He says, so now you're going to tell me you're not really lesbian, that you were just trying to put me off until you realized how much you love me. Just, no, I'm still lesbian, and I have no desire to be anywhere around you or ever see you again. Well, the irony is there's been Hollywood interest in the book, and what's the first thing all the producers always say? She can't be a lesbian. It's all a ruse, right? No, she's a lesbian. Because it's the Hollywood cliche. The heroine has to fall in love with the guy at the end. Every Bond film, every woman he gets involved with, wants to sleep with him and marry him at the end of these movies.
Yeah, but come on, we're talking Cary Grant and we're talking Michael Caine. I mean, why would it would not be believable if you didn't feel that way?
That's the other reason. These guys always are Robert Redford or my guy looks like me. He's overweight. He's got a shirt untucked to hide it, not fooling anybody. Jeans and tennis shoes. I thought it'd be interesting to have a hero who doesn't look like Cary Grant. Though I am mistaken for Cary Grant.
Basically a nerdy writer.
Yes, yes.
And so the opening scene, which we could certainly talk about without giving anything away, he is in fact on book tour, right? Mm-hmm. So there he is. You want to describe
the book tour? You talking about the first book or the second?
I thought there was one in this book.
There is. They're both.
Yeah, this one.
But on this book, the book tour is actually the.
He's somewhere talking about his book. Maybe it's a conference or something. I'm trying to remember. But there he is up in front.
He's up in front of an audience, and the audience. I'm trying to remember what you're trying to go for here. The audience kind of making fun of him in the Straker novels.
Yeah, but it starts out with him talking about his action hero.
Yes, and the action hero is nothing like him. Clint Straker is a freelance spy for hire. He's got the perfect quip. When he looks at a woman, she has multiple orgasms. Now I glanced at her; she didn't have a single one. He's always got the. How do I know, ma'am? Would you mind standing up and telling us if you had any orgasms when I looked at you?
Mercy. This is turning into an X-rated film.
There's a woman in the row here said, "Oh mercy," and she's heading for the door. It would not be an event at the Poison Pen if I didn't get thrown out at the end.
Normally we're R-rated, but carry on. So here he is, and he's up here doing. And how does a new adventure overtake him? Because
in this case, he's at a book signing. He's got a lot of authors when they go on tour, they have book escorts. Somebody in town who picks you up and takes you to the bookstore and holds your hand, make sure you get everywhere you have to go. And in this case, he has a book escort who's written a book about unicorns that's an allegory to stuff that's happening in our culture, and she's trying to get Ian to read it. So he'd rather put a gun in his mouth and pull the trigger. But as he gets out of the store, there's a limousine waiting, and inside the limousine is the director of the CIA. And the director of the CIA would like Ian's help. You did such a great job predicting the future before. We'd like you to be a CIA agent. Ian said, "Are you out of your mind? I write this crap. I don't want to live it. You can get killed being a CIA agent. No, thank you." And he thinks he has nothing more to do with international espionage. Sadly, Ian is wrong. He does get sucked back in.
Because that's all the rest of the book. So if he were wrong, we wouldn't have anywhere to go. But you have touched on a point, and Leah's absolutely right, that a number of thriller writers have actually been called in to discuss, scenario. I remember Vince Flynn, last time he was here, before he became so ill and died, had at least one consultation at, I don't remember, it was the Pentagon or the CIA or whatever, imagining how things might go. So it's not entirely incredible that Ian could come up with a scenario that would play out in real life.
It's totally credible. The World Trade Center, 2 or 3 years before that happened, the final episode of a series called Martial Law that I wrote was about terrorists flying planes into the World Trade Center. And this stuff happens all the time. People are inspired by what they see on television and read in books. I've had a problem with my books. Killer Thriller just came out. I wrote it a year ago, and I made up stuff about China and how they're spying on us and ways they're using technology. And I thought I was being pretty clever. Everything I came up with has come true. So there's actually a review yesterday from somebody saying Lee Goldberg is so lazy. Instead of making stuff up, he just pulled things out of the newspaper. But no, I made it up. And I'm having that problem now with the third book. Reality keeps taking over, and the stuff I think I'm making up is coming true, and I find it very frustrating. My wife and my editor find it very funny, but at a certain point I've just got to give in and just take my chances. My wife doesn't understand why I can predict these horrible terrorism things and not predict, say, the winning lottery number. Stuff that could actually help us out in life. But that's been scary. In Killer Thriller, I talk about how the Chinese, because we manufacture so much stuff in China, have been inserting in the manufacturing process back doors into the technology, like into servers and security cameras and other things that are made there.
Even children's toys.
Even children's toys. I thought I was being funny. It all came true. All of it. Including security cameras the United States government bought for an Air Force base in Nevada were built by the Chinese. The Chinese could look right in. I mean, this stuff is like, it's unbelievable. And it's happening to me now. It's kind of a surprise. But I think that helps ground these books in reality. When I was doing Monk, the thing that separated... I didn't create Monk. A writer named Andy Breckman did. He was a genius. And this was his logic, not mine. It's very over the top and funny. A character who's got obsessive compulsive disorder and everything has to be organized and he's solving murders. But the reason it's not Get Smart or Inspector Clouseau is because he ground Monk in a certain sad reality. His wife is dead, and that's the why he is the way he is. So every episode of Monk, there was a heartfelt, sad center to it. There was something in the episode that reminded you this is a broken, tragic man. And all of this pain, this is how he's dealing with all this pain. This obsessive compulsive disorder is an expression of the tragedy he deals with every day. So you could laugh, but at the same time, you cared about him. That, I don't have a central tragedy in these books, but I make Ian real. I make him normal. When he gets hit in the face, it hurts and it stays swollen and painful through the whole book. I make a point of having this ridiculous sex scene, an excerpt from one of Ian's novels, and then I have him in bed. He's on the run with this lesbian. He's in bed and they're in their underwear eating Kentucky Fried Chicken, watching old Star Trek movies. The complete opposite of the Straker character, to show that the reality is very different from the fiction he's writing. And I try to make him human and afraid. And when I have a death in true fiction, it's not a funny, clean death. You know, when people die, you lose control of your sphincters and everything expels. Ian has written a million shootings and deaths on television in his books. He never saw that. He's like, oh my God, he wasn't prepared for it. My hero isn't a coward, but he is afraid a lot of the time. He's not great with his fists. And I think that allows the reader to invest in Ian. And while they're laughing, at least they don't see it as a satire, as a cartoon. They have a character they can root for. And I think that's very, very important when you do something like this, for the comedy to work.
Well, I don't disagree with that. On the other hand, you know, when you're running him through the Jackie Chan sequence, which he stumbles into, that I think is satirical.
Yeah. Well, no, I do go for the cheap joke. I have a couple flatulent jokes in there too. You know, I'm not beyond stooping. But you know, I do write these books as entertainment. I'm not trying to be John le Carré or Vince Flynn. They're entertaining. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to be realistic in that sense. I'm trying to have a fun romp, but I don't think any reader's going to mistake this for a genuine espionage novel.
No, but that's what made it fun to read. I mean, if you like thrillers, it's really fun to read a book in which, you know, all of that is working, and yet it's. I'm trying to think. It's a different way of looking at it. You know.
Well, you know that old adage, write what you know.
Yeah.
Well, I've never been a spy, but I've written a lot of mystery shows. I've written a lot of mystery novels, a lot of thrillers. I know the guy who writes those books. It's me. So, and Ian Ludlow was my pen name for the first 4 books that I wrote. So this really is me. For the 3rd book that I'm writing now, I didn't want to repeat what I did in True Fiction or Killer Thriller.
Yeah. So
I have my hero, and I'm not going to give away too much of the plot, in the situation I'm in right now. He has writer's block because every time he goes to write something, it's either happening or he knows now from first-hand experience that it's BS. And he's finding a really hard time to write a Straker novel because he knows that any schlub can do it because he did it. Yeah. You know, you don't have to have Straker's training or experience. And so my hero's in the book's called Fake Truth. He's in a world now where fiction has become reality and no one knows what truth is, and he doesn't know whether he's going crazy or the world has gone crazy or what. And now he's in a weird position. And I didn't want to do another book where one of his plots is coming true. because I did it twice.
Okay.
You know, in the first book, something he suggested to the CIA as a terrorism scenario comes true. He realizes that. He realizes who's responsible, and they're trying to kill him. In the second book, he goes to Hong Kong to research. His movie's being shot there, but he's using it as an excuse to go to Hong Kong to research his new novel about the Chinese invading America with a stealth technological invasion. And when he checks into a hotel there, he doesn't know that the Wi-Fi is a way for the Chinese government to look at everybody's computer. Also something that came out. And the Chinese see his outline, and it's exactly what they're doing right now. And they think, oh my God, he's stumbled on our secret plot. He's actually a spy. He has to die. But he's unaware that the Chinese are onto him, or that they've made this horrible miscalculation. So I twist a little bit what I did in the first book and go in a slightly different direction in the second. But for the third, I know I have to abandon what I did before and try to find a different way to explore the spy genre and the world around us where fiction has become reality and vice versa.
Well, actually, I think that's the big challenge of writing, thrillers at the moment is that, who would have imagined 2 weeks ago that we would have learned all this, all this interesting stuff. You actually can't make up the things that are really happening.
I've sat with other writers, and particularly TV writers, because of what's happening in the news right now. It is so hard to write a thriller plot that's going to engage the audience. But even because of all the reality shows on TV, it's hard to write emotional drama that's going to engage the audience. So it's a really tough time to be a writer. I mean, remember back in the day when you could be thrown out of a presidential primary because a woman sat on your lap? And now you have a president who says, I grabbed her by the, what else? And you get elected. It's a whole different world. Right now, there are things coming out that would have destroyed careers that people just shrug off. Yeah. On the other hand, there are other things that are coming out now that people were fine with years ago that are destroying careers.
Well, it's definitely a shift in reality, but I do think as a writer, it does present, very interesting challenges. It presents them even to me, trying to figure out which books, would be. Safest place to be right now is historical fiction. We already know how it comes out, and we can explore things. We can explore the past as it, may predict or reflect where we are. I mean, we're not the only people who have lived through bizarre times.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, the front end of every century has been like this. Last century it was the First World War, and the century before it was the Napoleonic War, and then the century before that was when the world's financial scheme that we use today was being developed, and so you have the South Sea Bubble where everybody lost all their money, and on it goes. You have the War of the Roses. But when the old order's dissolving and a new one is evolving, it's a very uncertain time because we don't know how it's going to come out. And the old norms are crashing away. I mean, in 1910, nobody could have imagined that the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which was like 8 centuries old, would be gone. Or Russia, or.
But it's also so hard now to write a mystery when you've got CCTV cameras everywhere and you've got phones that are like GPS on everybody's.
You have to either disable it or adapt it. One of the best mysteries that I can remember, Barry Maitland, who you may not even know who he is. He's wrote in Britain for years. He's an Australian, but he wrote this wonderful series of London police procedurals. And he starts one at the Chelsea Flower Show where a woman falls in front of a car, and this guy, they decide that maybe she didn't trip, maybe she was actually pushed. And by following CCTV cameras, the guy had on a flashy pair of tennis shoes, trainers as the English call them. They had a particular, I can't remember if it was a logo or a light or something, that went on. So the shoes were distinctive. And he was able to track this guy from the Chelsea Flower Show down into the underground, onto a bus, all across London, and eventually up the stairs to the guy's apartment door, all by using CCTV. So he made it work for him, in a way that in maybe an older book you would have had like bloodhounds or, something tracking this guy. And I thought that was such a genius use of new technology, but in a familiar way.
You've had Thomas Perry in this seat. I wonder how he's able to do now those books, the Jane
Whitefield,
where he disappears people. Like, how do you disappear in this world today? It's so hard to be off the grid. It's
well,
almost
he's
impossible.
just written one called The Burglar that he was here to talk about, and she is the person. Now, here's an interesting technique. She's the person who has decided that Beverly Hills is her hunting ground. You know, the people there have got enough stuff lying around the house, you know, that would be worthwhile breaking in, and that they're mostly going to have them in the master bedroom. So what she does, knowing about all the security and everything, she's young and she's small, she becomes a jogger. And so she dresses the whole part, and she's out there pounding up and down the streets of Beverly Hills. And you have to go full out, or you don't look like a California jogger. You know, you can't just like. And that becomes like she becomes invisible, even though there is all this other stuff.
I'm guessing Tom didn't research that first person. I can't see him jogging through Beverly Hills.
Perhaps not, and not as a young female. But my point is, you can make a lot of this stuff work for you. I think the thing with the phones is the hardest. Mostly they have to, like, the battery, runs down, or they throw it. There was a horrible hole in the Jack Ryan. Maybe we talked about this. Any of you watch the most recent Jack Ryan adventure on TV? They got a new guy who's come in as Jack Ryan Jr., not Senior, the Tom Clancy thing. Okay, so they're in France. They've already bungled up this effort to nail down some terrorists in France by running across Paris with their lights flashing and all this other stuff. I mean, no alert there. But anyway, they've already shown in the opening part, Jack Ryan is suffering because he let this kid in some village in Syria. He felt so sorry for him. He invited them on to the evacuation helicopter. And the kid, when he gets on the helicopter, pulls out his phone and smiles and goes, and the helicopter blows up, and only Jack Ryan survives. So we already know that he should be alert to that. So when they get to the terrorist village, part of Paris or whatever it is, and they're thundering up the stairs, there's another little boy with a phone sitting on the stairs, and they just go right by him. Nobody stops. It says, wait, here's another kid armed with a phone, so the same thing happens, they go up there and confront the guys, and meantime the kid who's alerted everybody, at some point.
This is why I beat up every kid with a phone I see.
Okay, but there is a way, aside from just picking up the kid, the other way you can prevent this happening is you can shut down all the cell towers. So there is a way, it's like a ticking clock kind of a thing. Here's somebody over here with a bomb and maybe a phone, and we don't know who he is. What are we going to do? We shut down all the cell towers. And then the phone signal can't go. And so you can add, a whole new element.
But I like, for my books anyway, I like having the technology because I like having Ian completely overwhelmed.
Well, I
and
understand
outmatched.
that.
I love the idea that he's totally screwed.
But what do you thought of that writing it? What do you think? Okay, kid, cell phone bomb.
Ian?
How about cell towers?
He's a hack. Like a certain writer I know.
It just changes.
Yeah.
It just changes the weaponry, so to speak.
By the way, I should say, I think Thomas Perry is one of the greatest thriller writers. I mean, every time I read his books, he makes it seem effortless. It's like, I wish I could write as well. Tom Perry. To me, he's criminally underappreciated. He should be #1 New York Times bestselling author. He's just incredible. And God, his assassin books he did, the Sleeping Dog and Butcher's Boy, they're great. They're just great. But I have The Burglar. I bought it when I was in Texas yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you know that she jogs
Now
down the
it's ruined
streets of
for me.
Los
I'm
Angeles.
going to give it to a homeless person on my way back to the hotel.
No, it's right up there in the front. Anyway, I do see that, as you say, what you're doing presents different challenges, and that you can, by the time you finish a book, by the time it publishes, you could very well have. But that's a fact, that other thriller writers who've been here talk about a lot. Daniel Silva's writing right down to the wire. For all we know, Palestine will be, a nation state by the time this next book comes out. And
well, one thing I've done is, I'm doing these Ian Ludlow books and I love it, but I don't want to get stuck just doing this kind of book where I'm making fun of thrillers while writing a thriller. So my next book that comes out in September is a straightforward police procedural about the youngest member of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department Homicide Division, a woman. And there's humor in it, though. I mean, I can't write without humor. but it is a dark, straightforward procedural, because I think it's important for me to stay fresh, to be able to shift between writing an over-the-top, action-adventure, funny book and something that's serious and much more grounded in reality. So that when I come back to Ian, I come back fresh, renewed with it, and I'm not bored, and I can see the world a different way. So I want to have like a palate cleanser, so to speak. And I'd like, maybe I'm being presumptuous, I love Lee Child, and I love Janet, and I love these authors who do one series, but I don't think I could do that. I admire Michael Connelly's career in that he's got a lot of different books that he's writing. And I'd like to be able to do that. So I'm fortunate in that I have two series. I have the Ian Ludlow books. I'm writing number 3 now. And the police procedural, as soon as I'm done with the third Ian Ludlow, I'm writing the second one of those. So in a perfect world, I'll be writing 2 books a year, an Ian Ludlow and an Eve, the character's name is Eve Ronan, an Eve Ronan book. And that way I can, shake things up a little bit and keep myself creatively fresh, but also keep my readers more engaged and also broaden my audience.
What kind of a jump was it for you, or was it a jump to go from writing scripts to writing novels?
They're very different, very, very different.
How are they different?
Well, when you write a book, you are the director, the cinematographer, the location scout, the wardrobe person, the cameraman. You're writing everything. And you can get inside someone's head. You can reveal plot in description and what have you. In a script, you have to show it, not tell it. If you don't see it, and if a character doesn't say it, it doesn't happen. And a screenplay, unlike a book, is essentially a blueprint for other people to do what they do. It's like a blueprint for a house. You have the people who have to build the kitchen and do the wiring and do the plumbing and put the roof on. That's what a script is. It's a document that the actors read for the acting, a director reads for the camera angles, a cinematographer reads for the lighting, the location manager reads for locations. It's a working document. It's not the same as a novel. If I want to describe Bookstore, I just say, in Bookstore today, incredibly charming young Jewish man speaks to an audience of thousands. In a book, I've got to go into much more detail, and I have to decide the point of view. Whose point of view am I telling the scene from? Mine, yours, an audience member's, an omniscient narrator? In many ways, a book is harder. And I've had a weird experience of writing a book and then having to do the television adaptation. That was really weird. I wrote a book called Mr. Monk Goes to the Firehouse and adapted it into the script Mr. Monk Can't See a Thing. And it's 2 different monks. I realized that the character I wrote in the books was slightly different from the TV character because the medium is different. You can't get away with... The character has to be deeper and have more levels and more layers in a book if you're spending 400 pages with that character. And he's going to be in your head as opposed to behind a screen. And there is a difference. If you're going to be carrying a character inside of you while you read the book, you have to really like that character and be able to invest in that character in a deeper way than in television. Which is why I have a publishing company called Brash Books, and we get some submissions where I don't want to have these characters in my head for a book. I don't want to publish it because I don't want to live with them. I think that's an important consideration. You can have unlikable characters, but there has to be something that the reader can invest in, that they care. Dexter was a serial killer, but we all found the humanity in him or something in him that made him a hero for us, a reason that we could have him in our head, even though he was deeply disturbing. I don't know how I got affected that. But in any case, there's a huge difference between scripts and books. One thing that scripts have really helped me with, though, is you have to be incredibly tight in a script. If a scene doesn't reveal character and move the plot forward, the scene goes. If there's exposition, you cut it. You're tight and lean and fast. And I brought, intentionally, screenwriting techniques to true fiction and killer thriller. I want them to read the way an action script reads. When you get caught up in an action script, it has an energy that a book doesn't have. And I've always wanted to capture that same energy in a novel. And to be honest with you, working with Janet Ivanovich for those 5 books helped me find that voice. She writes like a screenwriter.
Yeah.
She's very tight, the story's dialogue-driven, and she taught me that the writing should be invisible. If you write a line of description that's really clever, cut it, because it draws attention to the writing. Put that line in a character's mouth. If you can't, don't do the line at all. And I thought that was brilliant, actually. And I've taken the lessons I've learned from 30 years as a television writer and from writing with Janet, those 5 books, and I think Killer Thriller and True Fiction are the result of that education, of those 2 experiences.
That's really interesting, and yet I've just had a conversation with an author in which I've had to say to her, dialogue is not action, and there's too much talking and not enough happening in this.
Oh, that's absolutely.
In
You
this
can get caught up with the banter, and it's all about banter. It's a balance. You have to have action, but you don't want to have big, thick lines of description. I mean, another person who's great at this, or is Robert B. Parker.
Yeah.
Those books read like screenplays too.
They did.
Dialogue driven, very little description. And if you look at Parker, he's great at that. He'll give you the one line that sums up that character or that place in its entirety, and that's all you need. And
He got briefer as he got older too. It's interesting. His books actually, it generally goes the other way. Most writers get, I don't know, their canvas gets bigger, or they're not nearly as tight. Parker went the other direction. His later books were smaller, shorter than his earlier books.
this may be a horrible thing to say, but I think Ace Atkins is writing Spencer better than Parker did the last 10 years of his life. I think what Ace Atkins has done is nothing short of miraculous. He sounds like Robert Parker in Parker's prime. It doesn't sound like imitation. It doesn't sound like pastiche. It sounds like Parker. He's just channeling Parker from the dead. It's really amazing. I love what Ace has done.
He's done a wonderful job, not just with Spencer, but with all the characters. They've taken on dimension and stuff that wasn't there. Bob had illness and other things going on. But no, I think Ace has done a remarkable job. I'm the Spencer person. Patrick is the Jesse Stone.
Well, that's the other thing. I'm not just saying this because Reed is my friend. I think Reed took an incredibly courageous. He made an incredibly courageous decision, which was to not try to imitate Robert Parker, but to write Jesse Stone in Reed's voice. To be true to the characters, but make them Reed Farrell Coleman novels. And he's also done an exceptional job.
Yeah, I think they're all very interesting. And we have Robert Knott coming back to the store in May. And he's writing I'm sorry, I never remembered Hitch.
The Virgil.
Virgil and Hitch,
yeah.
is that it? Yeah, the Westerns. But think about that Parker's now been gone quite a while. He wrote 3 different things, and yet they're still so alive. Even if other people are writing them, they're still rooted in the Parker universe. He really did a remarkable thing to create that, So, I want to thank our Facebook audience for joining us this evening, and never mind the R-rated material.